Here it is for the second part. Last day of September special dedicated to my brothers and sisters, fellow indigenous brothers and sisters across Canada and the North American Collective. And look at these beautiful flowers. I just love this one here, and please don't leave any trash here. Look how gorgeous they are here, so lovely. And these ones just light up, brighten my smile, quadruple my smile. And this is just a nice garden here. I love it. Whoever did that work there to put it in. I got that backpack. Thank you for the donation for the radishes. It is September 30th. And they're on strike, but it doesn't affect today. Today is not affected. Today is not affected because, of course, the schedules are not affected today, but of course it is affected tomorrow. So tomorrow, Wednesday, and then Friday, but today is not a problem, but they're on strike, you know, so they have that strike where you go, of course, and if you gotta get, of course, on the bus, you might be affected. See, here we got, of course, the affectations, of course, of us to be in all the domains where we are now, but of course it's something where we have, of course, to interdepend ourselves. If you are a citizen who utilizes the public transit on the daily basis, then of course you have the multifactorial aspects of travel. But of course, if you're somebody who just commutes irregularly like myself, then you're less affected, you know, you're less affected. So that less affectation is, of course, something which, of course, they have to be, of course, something which we gotta be on that meditative style, of course, where we are now. So that is just something when we have, of course, to be. That's just something what we have to be in. Yeah, that is, of course, a reality of today's environment, that we are on strike. And I gotta salute the bus drivers, train conductors, and the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, those, of course, involved in the production distribution of food, and of course all those involved in the production distribution of food are, of course, to be saluted, because I got, of course, some of that rock and roll with it. And of course that is, of course, always something which we gotta traverse prudently. Turn your heads left or right, left or right, left or right. Do it triple, you know, super important to do it a few times. And you know, last time we went by that side, but now we're gonna go on the other side there. We're gonna go straight driving it in, and then turn a little bit on the left and on the right, and go, of course, in the sun as much. I want to get as much sun as I can, but I want to, of course, change a little bit of that trajectory. And of course, changing a little bit of that trajectory is, of course, something what we have to be doing on that. And that is, of course, all the situational aspects where we have now. And of course, awareness that myself, I'm in the public, and of course, being that I'm in the public, I have added responsibilities and obligations to stay on the right, and also for my fellow citizens, you know, to turn my head left and right before I cross the street. And of course, to cross the street prudently here, because it's a pedestrian street, see? So of course they're supposed to give that priority right here, see? This, of course, indicates there's a priority for the pedestrians, you know? So you have to let the pedestrians. Your being late is not more important than somebody's life. And you see, you got a beautiful garden there, look. Quite joyous garden, and that's on the side there as we go. And that's, of course, on that side where we go now, of course, to be in the public domain. You know, we got these added responsibilities, duties, and obligations. And of course, myself with my neurodivergence and special HFA, high functioning autism that I live with, this neurological mental divergent condition, which makes me predisposed to certain more bizarre bodily movements, you know, certain clumsiness of not when I march, but sometimes. And I got that backpack. I gotta be grateful, thankful. As you saw in part one, that I got some radishes, some romaine lettuce, a cantaloupe, and I got a little bit of that protein. So that was a good protein, thank you. I've been on a fitness journey since 2017, and this march is dedicated to my fellow brothers and sisters indigenous. You know, it's National Reconciliation Day here, Truth and Reconciliation Day, and we've been, of course, observing it kind of since 2013, and in a different form. But now in the past 4 years, I think this is the fourth in a row, and it's known as the National Truth and Reconciliation Day. So that is, of course, something which I gotta send some love and hugs and kisses and rock and roll to my fellow indigenous brothers and sisters. You know, I'm not indigenous myself, and I do believe in reincarnations and all that, and lived here on the island many past lives, many incarnations. You know, I got that Canada tatted up, Canada tatted up, don't need to have the flag on me. I guess I have it on me 24/7, and of course that is just the relationship what we got now to go in the sun, you know. And of course this, look at that. That can be dangerous. Think about it. Somebody jogging here, putting the weight, he's got a lot of work to do. Look at that. Even with the bikes, if somebody comes in the speed and the velocity, that could be a little bit of danger zone. It's really thick right in the middle of the road. So I'm just thinking about people who would go on the bike and fast and jogging if they don't know that there's a big pothole there. National Geographic. No, I'm not gonna take any, but quite interesting. I guess if you like that stuff, National Geographic, if you like it, you know, then of course you gotta observe to take it. But if you don't like it, then of course it's something what you have. See another one there, see? Another one. Nice. Another one, see? Four in a row. That's for a step. Just a step goes there. I'm just thinking, of course, that this is just one segment, so we got a lot of work to do, to get the North American Collective. We got a lot of work to do, internal work, you know. And I'm all for the North American Collective Workers Party. Pledge your allegiance, our family, 24/7 for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, all involved in the production, distribution of food. All that's gotta go. We gotta get on that public-private partnership, and always for the 10, the 50, and the 3. Androgynous, pansexual, lesbian, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, honest, and theorist, and who admires a little bit of that beautification of the little beautiful light blues. Little beautiful light blues. I see you gonna sing it like the sky blue. Sky blue, get the shaker. Shake it till you bake. I ain't got some worries. Ain't got no money for the studio. I gotta sing that a cappella freestyle rainbow rock and roll. On the dragon as we go. And that is something which we gotta do together now. Of course, in the implementation, those are nice too. Look at those. See? No, but those are not blue. Those are, of course, violet. I like colors like that. I see another one here. We got a lot of potholes, man. I'm just thinking about people who go with a bike really fast who don't know the area, and they would go, of course, really fast, and then that's dangerous, pretty much. The depth of it, you know. I'm trying to kind of measure the depth, so we have so many just in one place. That would be more dangerous for the bikes. So, yeah, just assessing it over the days and getting, of course, that assessment, of course, of all the things which we have here in common, which is the public-private enterprise, because now, of course, I'm a private individual sovereign citizen. I don't want to intellectualize it or be too philosophical academic about it, but I'm an individual sovereign private citizen who has now public responsibilities as well as duties parallel to the rights, you know, my rights to life, and liberty and security, you know, and gotta secure those life, light, security, but I gotta add some love in that, because the moment that's what I got, and you know me, I love the yellow flowers, love it. Although red is my favorite color, and when it comes to flowers, I love them yellow a lot, although I love red, of course. Red is my favorite color. R-E-D, that's scarlet crimson, but yellow. I see those yellows and those beauties right there in the corner as well, you know, but just something about yellow flowers that just it gives me some joy, you know. I guess sometimes it's irrational, you know. I mean, might try to be too logical about it, but fundamentally it is also semi irrational, and it's not all about the logic, the mathematics. It's also a lot of our habits, days, and hidden fears, hidden lust, and hidden triggers, you know. They have to do with the irrational component of life, you know, which we have, and just we have to keep it sometimes so that we harm none, basically, fundamentally, you know. And that's just something how we gotta live by. And I'm somebody who doesn't like violence, you know. I don't like violence at all. I do not like violence. I am hyper vigilant though, because of my own trauma survived, and you know, having been viciously attacked by surprise a few years ago, and the Montreal Metro was attacked, bloodied up and hit in the head. I don't know if it was with an object or something, or it was just fist for sure. Very hardcore surprise attack, you know. And I don't know if it was with an object or blunt object or something, or with an object in the hands. I felt hit my head on the concrete. in the Montreal Metro, and I had a dislocated right shoulder, right arm, and went to the Jewish General Hospital. And I gave myself a new deadline by October 31st, to go retrieve the archives to see when was that, because as far as my memory goes back to, of course, winter 2014, before winter 2014, January winter 2014. I have trouble remembering, just before winter. So before winter 2014, like January-ish, early February-ish. Before that, I have just trouble memories with remembering my life. And of course, RA, retrograde amnesia, form of amnesia. RA, retrograde amnesia. Does not affect skills in linguistic skills and mathematics skills, Thank God is for that, I guess. Otherwise, I would have lost. Of course, the skills protruded, and I see my auntie there coming on the side, and just crossing. I'm just gonna get out of the way because I have the backpack. My principle, I do 4 steps. I do 4 steps to the right and to the left, and then give it in. And the children, they're innocent, and the children are innocent, gotta give it. I was laughing because I said how weird it must look, just doing that ritual, because I laugh at myself now, but it's for their safety basically, because the parent I'm assuming with the child, I don't know, but just the way I moved, kind of looked very comedic, because I kind of moved my 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of looked a bit clumsy. So I know I looked clumsy doing it, like weird, but just because for their safety, I have the protocol. When I see mothers with children, or I don't know if there's mother-father relationship, but when I see them going on the bike coming towards me, or youth, I have the 4 steps protocol, but I make sure I do them safely for myself, my safety as well. So I take either 4 steps to the left or to the right, and then if I have to, I would go the other direction, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. If they're coming, eat there, or if they're coming the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4 the other way, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 the other way to get back in my line of sight, in my trajectory. It's a bit technical, semi-technical, scientific a bit, I guess. So what I'm calculating is actually risk assessment and velocity, speed and distance, It's, in my head, there's mathematics involved in this 4 steps protocols, to the right or to the left, or to the left or to the right. Right is not something that's, but of course there's that necessarily a little bit of irrationality into it, because of course I'm doing it for my safety and their safety, and for our safety collectively, I guess, for myself and the others. And for example, if I would see children coming now towards me on the bike, I would do the same protocol as I did for the, I don't know, if cannot assume much, we assume much sometimes, I don't know, I just say the person, citizen with the infant, the youngling. And then I do 1, 2, 3, 4. What are those 4 here in the mess? Sometimes there's beauty in the mess. Hey, that's good. But I don't have any space. But somebody's got some talent, I gotta say. At least the bunny and that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, that's pretty cool. I like this one. I guess good job. But this one is pretty good. More than I can do. This one's okay-ish. This one I like a lot. Awesome anime. This one I like a lot. Like the red eyes, because I like red, but this one is pretty cool. This one, yeah, this one's cool too, the mix of the, so you got these 4 here, but I don't have space, I don't have space. Now this one's pretty cool with the red, and I guess it's some red in the eye. Bunny, bad bunny got some eye. Anyways, I don't know. There's a little bit of talent, I guess, here and there in the places, but that's a bit messy there for hygiene for the children. I'm just thinking because of the children, of course, for the children is something which I gotta be taking on that. And that's of course something which I gotta be saying, that for their safety and sanitation we should be more cleanliness, more cleanse it a bit more, because the children can go and put their hands, can go and put their hands with that, and that's just the situation, so just because of that I'm saying, don't worry, I get messy, I get back clean, I just sometimes I'm a mess, I've been a mess, I've been depressed and suicidal. It's just because we have to encourage each other, and support. And as an N.A.C.W.P, I don't need a lot of support. a lot of support. I don't need a lot of support with that, but with my Asperger's, because of HFA, I'm different. So social interactions can be more awkward, weird, and bizarre. But when it comes to philosophical, intellectual discussions, or working out, training, exercising, dancing being my favorite sport, and of course I excel at geopolitics and hear of things of nature and civilization, and see, because of course, for example, here, like I said, because there's a person, citizen, or even if it's a non-citizen, it doesn't matter, right? But it's the same principle applies to all who come. Take 4 steps back, then 4 steps, and then the same with my 1, 2, 3, 4, the same, so that I get out of the way. I get out of the way, and there's safety. Then I go back 1, 2, 3, 4. So I get back from my position. They're joyous, screaming, and happy and safe. That's what matters to me. The youth, and that's something which I gotta be saying for LOV, for the youth. Salute the youth, and today, fellow indigenous community, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. I gotta be appellating and gotta be putting these steps for my brothers and sisters indigenous today, because it's National Truth and Reconciliation Day. So thinking about you and sending you some good vibes, some good hugs and kisses, and of course some other good loving which I have. But other than that, I don't have money. I don't have money's something which I don't have, but it's of course something which I gotta send on that LOV now today, because it's important for me to do so, and it's important for me to adjacently say that I offer what I have, that's what I do it with, and offering what I have today. And now we're gonna go on the other street, and we're gonna get on that, go to the sea now, and this is what we're gonna meditate a bit on, that geopolitics, the geopolitical, of course, situation what we have now. Of course, it is something which is not necessarily ideal, and of course, having of course predicted with that, is something which you have of course to implement on the dimension where we have now, to be on the same level of discussion. If you're not interested in geopolitics, and know that geopolitics is my special interest, and of course that special interest is geopolitics parallel to rock, roll, sports and fitness, and thereof you might not be interested in the coming dialogue in a little bit. So of course that dialogue, that discussion, is that I'm gonna take a turn here, and we're gonna zigzag it a bit in the sun, and then we're gonna drill it some more in the sun and back. So that's just how we're gonna op it with this one. And always for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, and doctors, electricians, I just wanted to change a little bit. Sometimes yesterday we went by the mountain, and probably tomorrow we're gonna go to my second home again. The mountain is, due to my ritual like routines, we have these type of ASP routines. Asperger's, it's something which I live with, and live with that neurodivergence, so being neurodivergent is something where we got to get drilling, of course, in the multifactorial aspects, of course, of implementing all the domain names. We might use Asperger's. I still use Asperger's, but of course it has merged with autism, so now I use both high functioning autism and HFA. So I use both when I discuss my condition, which is not a mental illness, it's not a disease, it's not an illness, it is a neurological divergent condition, and I have to live with it, because there's no medication, right? You cannot medicate Asperger's. You can only of course work on the characteristics, and working on those characteristics is what I have to do myself, and it's reciprocity. Others have to also be understanding, because that's all that's required really from my part, understanding. And of course I have had my share of struggles and suffering and pains and loneliness and losing friends and losing jobs, losing employment, just like many other aspects. But today I gotta be grateful for that. Look at this long, I love Cadillacs. Cadillac is my favorite color. If I would buy, is my favorite car, but red is my favorite color. I would buy one red and green, that Cadillac there, Cadillac 1963, and just gonna get out of the way for the children there. Let them have their whole domain here, because I can just go straight and don't want to interfere with their joy and their playing, So it's gonna take 4 steps to the left and then 4 steps to the right and then get back in, you know. So I didn't wanna I didn't wanna go and interfere there with their play. That's all we have to do, eh? So that is of course something which we have to do together. So their joy is very important to me and their safety, and this is not that safe on the children there, but you know, because they can have little just nails. Make sure the nails are off of that because they put their hands there, you know. So that is my concern for that specific incident there, you know. Just make sure there's no nails there and don't leave the trash there, you know, like that. And some hygiene, some common doing for each other, you know. We gotta implement each other and support each other in the public as much as we can for the betterment. I'm now gonna cross here and we're gonna go in the sun. So we're gonna go, if we can go that way. This is quite beautiful here. And these ones, see, look at that. These ones are really nice. See the pink. Wow, quite beautiful here. Thank you, public workers who embellishes. These ones are also nice. These are tall, but these ones are also nice. The little flowers, as you know me, I gotta go and thank you to the public workers. I love gardens, you know, team like that. And these ones are also what I call little lions there, and that's something nice, you know. That's something nice. And now we can either go into the sun, but here is gonna be a bit messy because of the we're gonna inhale a lot of
J'ai mal de trafic en tabarnak là-bas.
Ah ouais, c'est peut-être le premier ministre qui nous rend visite, là.
Ah, peut-être,
Hey, sais-tu que le premier ministre il est né à la Chine?
non.
Il n'y a personne qui le sait à part moi. Le premier ministre, là, il est né à l'hôpital de la Chine, François Legault. Puis je m'en vais à la Chine, puis personne ne le sait. Ben, il dit, vous savez même pas que votre premier ministre est né de traite là.
Je le connais pas.
Salut. Tu votes pas, c'est pour ça. Ciao. That's a little bit of that French Canadian. That's a little bit of that French Canadian side there. And it was he was bitching a bit about the traffic. He probably said, what is this weirdo there? But yeah, I'm weird because I also like flowers. But I said, hey, that's why I'm not driving. And I joked with him. I said, you're going to Lachine because you don't even know that the Prime Minister is born in Lachine, you know. He's born in Lachine, of course. So, of course, if he doesn't know that he's born in Lachine, then, of course, it's something which we have to do. Of course, the business way of things, you know. So that's just the communication. My French Canadians here, the cousins, the sisters of the great Quebec. And he looked rock and roll, and he kind of looked at me and smiled, and he said, hey, you are a weirdo. What are you doing smelling those flowers? And yes, we are double trouble and drudges, pansexual, aspie artist, athlete, weirdo who I just love the embellishment of the public. Thank you, workers of the public who put those flowers, you know, I just love them there. And they're so bright, and of course, so bright, gotta watch it for these bags, you know. For these bags there is something which we have, of course, to be, and we're gonna get it on the go now, and something which we have, of course, to traject. And we're gonna go on that side, of course. So now we're gonna cross here. See? Now we're gonna cross here. See this one. Look at that. This can be dangerous for the feet there, see? Look, if you put your feet there, you trip, you know? You trip. You trip, you know? So you might trip on that, you know? So that's why we have, of course, to be careful about it, you know? So, and here we got a lot of public works going on here. So we got a lot of work. See, the moon's getting full there a little bit. And that's, of course, just the trajectory where we have now. Just the trajectory where we have now. The trajectory where we have now. So, of course, we're going to get on that go. Get avec lui. Get avec lui. Le fentanyl. Militarisé de côte à côte. Here we are, beautiful bridge. So just like this bridge, of course, we have to buy and build bridges. Just like this bridge. Quite beautiful structure, see? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes I wonder, see how many bolts. Let's do a meditation. See the bolts there? Yeah, probably a big weight. Who built it, who constructed it, you know? I wonder when it was engineered. It's quite something, engineering of bridges, if you think about it. We gotta engineer, of course, more bridges, and of course build, of course, bridges, of course, in the traversation, of course, of these bridges now, you know. So there's just something which we have, of course, to do to appel it, of course, in this substantial position where we are now. Of course, it's something which we have, of course, to do. Look at those 4 birds, 4 birds, 4 birds, 4 birds. Look at those. 4 birds, beautiful birds. I said, hey, how many, you know, people are dying of fentanyl, maybe now, overdoses. More and more, I'm thinking this fentanyl is a bioweapon, you know, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense that so many people are dying. So many people are dying. So many people are dying now. There's something not adding up. More and more I'm declaring this fentanyl as a bioweapon, you know. For some reason, there's just something doesn't add up. In my calculations, my estimations, as I march now towards the sun joyously. And financially stressed, this is the last day, but I'm gonna have to survive October with $875. 874 71 more or less I guess less $4 I round it up. $4 can give me 3 wafers though, eh? So that's important for me, because I love those wafers. It's not all about the money. It's not all about the money. It's of course the prepositions where we are now, to be mindful of all this beauty here, you know, that we have these relations. And of course myself as a neurodivergent who has struggled, suffered, and has been through pain, blood, sweat, tears, all the domain where we have now to be, and all the inter-domain, of course, where we got to be now in the life-affirming manners, and in the life-affirming manners where we discuss Asperger's, because I gotta discuss a little bit about Asperger's. And again, I gotta salute the truckers, the truckers, and all those cars are eating away at money, because price of gas has went up and the cost of living has increased tremendously, you know. The cost of living has increased tremendously, you know. So that is just, of course, the truth, the prepositional truth, of course, that the cost of living is about to hit us hard, even harder, because it seems that it is increasing in the domains. And hey, I don't know if that's an edible mushroom. Somebody put it there. I thought it grew there. Hey, yeah, somebody had put it there. I don't know. You let me know. Is that an edible mushroom? I'm not sure if I would be a connoisseur, of course, then I would be. I gotta get to know my mushrooms, man, in case of a thermonuclear war, hey? And jokes aside, of course, the situation is serious, but I learned to sometimes laugh at myself because of all the suffering, the struggle, my trauma, the aspiness, the scars, you know. There's just sometimes what we have, of course, to interject in all, of course, all the domain in the plurality, of course, of the evolutionary process of where we are now. You know, so all those, of course, evolutionary processes that I'm making a reference to is, of course, how civilization has advanced and has, of course, taken into control where we are now with AI and all the technical apparatus. But you see, of course, how many bridges we got to build still, and that's all about building bridges between neurodivergence and neurotypicals and neurodivergence and neurotypicals. We got to get on that XYZ, and we got to get on that appellative, of course, of the ourselves being different, and the fact that we have to build bridges with you neurotypicals, and the fact that we have to build bridges with you neurotypicals, of course, is something which we have to continuously do, of course, in the appellation where we have now. So, of course, these bridges that you see there, some of them are, of course, bigger, smaller. We got to build bridges. Myself as an androgynous pansexual aspie artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical honest theorist, and who's marching now happily joyous towards the sun and taking a little bit of sun. Got that sunscreen. Oh, somebody's got talent there. I think that cat should stay. Maybe not the other scribblings, but you know, I gotta say, if you got talent like that, that's talented, eh? What was those 4 letters? That's talent. I don't know, you got talent, leave it there. That one, leave it, the other one, no. Unless you can do dragons for the dragon army, then I guess that's nice, eh? Like, the bridge needs working everywhere. It needs some working on the side and in the middle and on the left and on the right and round about it. But that's a beautiful cat. What do you say? Hey? I believe so. What do you say, netizens? I believe it's beautiful, black, white, and white, black, and some gray and 4 colors with that yellow. Of course, it kind of makes it beautiful, and let it stay. Don't remove it. I say let the cat stay. But the other scribblings on the side, like those ones we can remove. But if somebody's got talent like that cat, I think that's something which should embellish, of course, for the North American Collective. Our empire, of course, of the 63 is gonna be, of course, putting. But don't leave, though. I don't have gloves to remove it, and I don't know, of course, the safety, the security thereof. But don't. These, okay, so we make a compromise, we make a deal. If you have talent like that, yeah, okay, leave it. The Imperial coming police of the 63 for the new 911 Dragon Army protocols. You got talent. This bridge needs a little loving because it's, but not scribbling like this. But like that cat, if you could do dragons, hawks, dogs, or whatever animals, or animals and people like that cat, yeah. But this has to be, of course, recycled properly. So this you have, of course, to put. You're gonna bring it to the eco center, eco center right there. We're gonna pass by it later on, and you bring it to the eco center, and that's where it's gonna be staying, at the eco center there on the side. Deal? I think that's a compromise which we can make. What do you say? Because that's talent. I don't have that kind of talent myself, but of course somebody has a talent like that, right? So I have my talents, due to my special interests. It's geopolitics, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll. But of course we Aspies have to build bridges, and I wonder with these bridges, it kind of looks, of course, very, very unsafe at the moment. It looks a bit, of course, kind of looks like it's gonna crumble soon, and we got massive infrastructure rebuilding to do across the North American Collective. As you can see, this one is a bridge, but it's a bridge, and it's more of a highway bridge. But we have to build bridges. It's more a highway bridge, but there's a bridge here nonetheless, and that other one is a bridge. So between us Aspies who are neurodivergent, and Asperger's, again, it's not a mental illness, it's not evil, bad, or negative. Where we have to draw the line is when Aspies are, of course, are designated as evil, bad, or negative. We're no such thing. We're neurodivergence, and we're not, it's not a disease. And we have to build bridges, whether we build small bridges medium-sized bridges, large bridges, or extra large bridges. Those 4 bridges which we have to build, of course, are of course the sizes of the bridges, which might differ, of course, in any way, shape, or form. That they might differ, of course, when you order a coffee, when you order, of course, whatever you order, a small fry or whatever you order, is you might order a big one, a small one, and of course you might order something of the genre of a small, big, or extra large, or whatever the case may be. And that is just something which we gotta be putting in place to build these bridges, whether we build small bridges or medium-sized bridges or extra large bridges or small bridges or whatever one of those 4 sizes, small, medium, large, or extra large. We have to build them, I guess. I'm not guessing, because it's not a guess, but of course they can be built sizes together in different levels of building the bridges, where of course with different individuals and different aspects, where we have of course now to do whether we build those small, medium, large, or extra large. So that is just the reality. That is just the reality that we gotta build bridges. Look at those beautiful flowers there. So of course you have to build, of course, those bridges in the complexities of the relationships, which have to be resumed in a manner of simplicity, that we have to build bridges from both sides. Us, we're less than 1%, you know, myself as a semi-diagnosed, because for years and years and years I've been told by several individuals who have experience in the healthcare professional system that I have Asperger's, and of course this autism is something which of course is high functioning, and due to this high functioning autism, of course I'm different and neurodivergent, and of course all the matter which we have now to be concomitantly, of course, in all the appellations where we are structured thereof, that this high functioning autism is of course Asperger's, that there's one and the same, that we're discussing about one and the same. Look how beautiful the flowers are there. So when I say Asperger's and HFA, they're one, because they merged. Before it was strictly known as Asperger's. Now of course it has merged with autism, HFA. Look at these beauties. Look at these beauties. I love these here. Don't worry, I love you guys. I'm not gonna need to chase you, to cook you, to bake you. I just passing by. Oh, I'm just passing by. I'm an admirer, I'm a fan. I don't have fans myself, but pledge your allegiance to our family. And look at the beauties, eh? They're so beautiful. Black and white and gray, just minding their business. Oh, there are more there. 1, 2, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 40, 10, 5, 20, 21, 44. Yeah, 44. That's how much I counted. I counted by 5, and then 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 44. 44, maybe more. Maybe more than 44. And they're quite aquaplaning there, see? They're enjoying their trip, you know, to get on the go with that. And that's just something where we have to be, of course, in the side of all the things when we got to the levels, of course, of the domain, where we have now the plurality of that resolution, and to be mindful, of course, of our relationship with nature is also important, as I put these steps for my brothers and sisters indigenous community, for my brothers and sisters of the indigenous community. My indigenous brothers and sisters, is truth and reconciliation, and it's not all about this true north, strong and free, right? Yeah, to a certain degree, but we gotta add some loving and justice and truth and reconciliation. So to the true north, strong and free, gotta add some of that love and brave, and gonna get the Imperial Democratic Republic of the free, the strong, the brave, the loving, the free, the strong, the brave, the loving, the free, the strong, the brave, the loving, and the free. The free, the strong, the brave, the loving, and the just and the righteous with it. So as I put on those steps, of course, now, as I march into the sun, of course, with this beautiful, joyous occasion where I got some food security, because I got some radishes, and I gotta salute the train conductors. Gotta salute those train conductors. They're on strike, eh? It's a strike. It's a strike, of course, to be on that security, and if they're asking for 25%, we're gonna get into that in a bit. I'm just now, of course, gonna say, of course, that it is all the concomitant, of course, appellation what we have now to be in the domain where we got the resolution, of course, of all the situational awarenesses of all these levels of being. Turn your heads, well, gotta wait, of course, for people to traverse, of course, to traverse with that, and gotta turn your heads left and right, then drive it in, driving in. We're gonna go all the way, and then we're gonna turn right over there. We're gonna come on back on the parallel street. Hey, look at those beauties. I just love the flowers there, how they grow. It's just so joyously there. Hey, they got a little bit of that love and joy right in the concrete. Look at that. Hey, look at that flowers, and those smell kind of good. Those have a little scent, which I kind of like, and it's kind of pleasant, you know, a pleasant scent. And you see how much work we got to do there. We got a lot of work to do for nature, and try not to pollute, you know. Try not to pollute. Put it in the trash. Thank you, public workers who picked the garbage yesterday, who picked the recycling, and that's just something which we have to do now. So here's a corner which is a bit dangerous. That's why I wait, or sometimes I cross fast and I go right here.
Mais juste pour pointer à
They pass fast sometimes, so see? They go fast, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why I gotta go a few steps, because that's basically for the bikes, right? That's basically for the bikes, more for the bikes. That's why I stay here on the side, you know. So that is something which I respect, you know. I can't afford a bike myself now, but I'm good. I got driving these. I don't even know if I would do much biking. Yeah, once in a while. I guess I can check secondhand, but not this year, this season, no. But maybe next one, next spring, summer, you know. I go off into the mountain, but now we're gonna just delve a little bit on Asperger's and HFA. Asperger's and HFA, you know, that is just something which we have, of course, to be interdisciplinary about, and in this domain, of course, of the saturation of the ideas and the theories, which of course cannot be fully saturated or discussed in their philosophical, conceptual, psychic and mental manner, because we don't really know what causes Asperger's, also known as HFA. We don't really know, right? We don't really know, of course, whatever it is, the situation, whatever it is, of course, what it is with that, and this is something which we have, of course, to be congruent about. So there is now a new notion. There's a new development, of course. The new notion is, of course, that we have, of course, with the appellation, of course, what we got. So, of course, when the new notion is, and the new development in terms of not necessarily a notion, but the proposal that one of the causes of Asperger's and autism generally, and HFA, which is one with Asperger's, because they merged in 2013, 2014, but I use both for describing my neurological mental divergent condition, which is not an illness. I use both HFA, high functioning autism, and Asperger's. So of course that the use is for me, and the new news is in relation to what I am and in relation to autism generally, is that supposedly this, Tylenol is the brand though. You gotta stop saying Tylenol. It's acetaminophen, of course, is something what we have, of course, to be congruent, where we got, of course, to get it at low view, of course, for the implementation, of course, of the saturation, of course, of the knowledge what we have now, is that supposedly this ingredient in, of course, the Tylenol, it causes Asperger's and autism, you know. It causes Asperger's and autism generally. So, of course, keeping in mind for that fully satisfaction what we have now, of course, to be proponent in all the generalship where we are now, is that, of course, these domains and this domain of the causality, I'm meaning to say the different domains of the causality is just speculative. Again, I don't want to be too intellectual philosophical, but the domain of the speculation is that supposedly this ingredient cause, and I cannot pronounce myself on that, yes or no. We don't really know the cause, if it's hereditary, if it's of course biological, if it's of course genetic, the genetic, of course, biological, of course, calculation of where we have now. So all the domain where we have now and where we know now is, of course, that it is, of course, the conditions to create it can be, of course, partly hereditary, partly, of course, consequential, of course, in the hereditary manner, and of course that hereditary is, of course, what we got now. So, of course, whatever the case may be, it is, of course, on the situational aspect. What we got now is, of course, the situation that it is a neurological mental condition where we are, of course, involved in, and of course, all the domains are, of course, all the situations which causes the causality, of course. The causality, of course, is something which we have, of course, to be interdescendant, of course, about. So, of course, what causes, of course, autism, whatever the cause may be, it can be, of course, a formulation of more multiplicity of factors. What we do know is the characteristics, the characteristics. So, of course, knowing the characteristics and the traits are, of course, the situational positions where we have to build those bridges by management of those characteristics and traits. So managing, because you can't medicate Asperger's, because it's not a disease. And yes, Aspies can be pretty intense, pretty super focused, pretty concentrated. Like now what's happening with me is just super focus on my fitness, finishing my 4 or 5 hours, which I set myself to be as for years and years and years and years. I have this ritual-like routines, Aspies, we have these ritual-like routines. So having that, we have these ritual-like routines. We have these ritualized strange routines, and sometimes we don't sorry guys. So sometimes we just, to the detriment of other things of society, is of course something that we don't fully understand certain social dialogues, certain social dialogues. Hey, look, sometimes you get fishes there, see? Sometimes you get fishes there. Sometimes you get fishes. Why, you fish here, eh? People actually fish here. I'm just saying like that, but you can actually fish. You can actually fish. Of course, you can actually fish here, and of course you can be, of course, on the dimensions, of course, where if you enjoy fishing, you can come here and fish, and people do come fish, and people actually catch big fish here. If you're into that fishing, I'm more into knowing what people actually are able to fish, and I love those bees on the flowers. Look at that. So of course that is, of course, all the layers of back to Asperger's, autism, HFA, high functioning. So again, if it is this ingredient which causes it, please don't pollute. We got work to do. See. We got work to do, and that's what we got. Work to do with that. And that is, I mean, those can be compostable. So those forks, how many were there? 5 or 4? 4 or 5? They were kind of 4, because you want maybe more than 4. So of course that is just the way to do things. Put them in the trash and don't. We got people who, public workers, which we gotta salute, which we think God got us and our civilizational privileges that we have, eh? Otherwise the sanitation is a proposition. And here we go, beautiful flowers on the road, which give me a quadruple of the smile. They're not yellow, but I still love them, and I love flowers, and yellow are my favorite. So now I'm gonna go all the way to the top there, and then we're gonna drive it right back to on the other side. That's what we're gonna basically do, or go all the way by the parallel side and then drive it in to by the other side there. So back to Asperger's autism, what causes it is not inconclusive. It is part hereditary, maybe hereditary, genetic, biological, or biological, hereditary, or it could be just a factor, combination of the environment. So whatever the environment is, I guess at birth or during childbirth and other such developmental factors in the young age, environmental or genetic. It's inconclusive. So to say that it's possible that this ingredient can potentially cause, I guess, Asperger's, and which is want to know what HFA and autism generally. I mean, I cannot say rule it out. Basically, I have to know more about it. Unfortunately, I don't know fully about it, but of course I know a little bit about it. So that is just where I'm gonna end it with that. So that's basically where we're gonna kind of end it with that, and that's basically we're gonna leave it on leave it on that, if we are to just end it on that discussion, on that mark. And now we're gonna go on the side to be mindful of the characteristics, so the characteristics, of course, and those characteristics and traits are part of Asperger's, which have to be managed because there's no medication. See, somebody is fishing there. See, somebody is fishing, of course, so that is something which we have, of course, to get it on that left, and that is sometimes which we have to do. So that is the resolution of the causation of Asperger's, the causes. Again, I also say inconclusive. So of course inconclusive, and of course inconclusive is something which we have to get it on the appellation what we got now to be resolved about, and of course fully implement, of course, the categorical appellations of where we got now to be revolved around, of course, to get on the side of the situational awareness of this difference which we have. And this difference which we have is not negative, bad, or evil. Not bad, evil, or negative. Not bad or evil or negative. Right? It's not evil, it's not bad, it's not negative, it's not malicious. It is a distinction. It is a distinction. It is a distinction. See? It is a distinction. So this distinction is, of course, not bad, evil, or malicious. And the reason I'm turning here is because I want to admire, gaze, and look at these beautiful flowers here. See? Look at these beautiful flowers, Look at these. Look at these beautiful flowers. Look at these beautiful flowers, see? Beautiful, colorful. Well, those are kind of flowers, but kind of looks like and these are kind of paws. It's a painting with some flowers on the other side. Some kind of look like flowers on the other side, at least. Got some flora fauna. I guess they're intended to be semi-quasi-interpretive, but these you can clearly see that there's the mountains and maybe Mount Royal here supposed to be. And this is where you got the cedars, and here we got a little bit of hearts, and beautiful. This embellishes my whole... This is something which I love. I love things like that. I really love colorful, colorful things, and I myself am on that color. And yeah, we gotta get some more embellishment of the city. And gotta salute the public workers, and finalize, of course, on the discussion of Asperger's, autism. The causes we're gonna leave aside, because again, we don't know. We don't know. So, if of course we don't know what the causes are, here gotta turn left or right, or of course turning left or right, it is something which we gotta do together. So here we're gonna stay in the sun, and of course we're gonna do a little bit of that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and of course all that congregational appellation is of course something which we have, of course, to be on the dynamic and just stretch a bit, Stretch a bit left or right, and that is, of course, all the domain of the appellative, of course, regards, of course, for all our safety and security, which we gotta stretch a bit, of course. So stretching on that bit is, of course, something. Is of course something which we which we gotta do together. So of course, stretching left or right, or left or right. Está. Come on. Scheiße, Panzer. Scheiße. Nicht. Никакой заказ. Gotta watch watch it here because it's a lot of traffic, so I want to be safe, and there's a lot. That's why I stepped back on the seconds, and that is just something which we have, of course, to be, of course, in all the circumstantial positions now, of course, to be the motive, of course, of stretching and safety and security, and that is just something which we have, of course, to be now. You know, quite a smelly environment here where I am now. Gonna get a little bit of that whiff, and that is just something which we have, of course, to be on the left and on the right, and be right here in the middle, you know, because otherwise we get all the smoke. We get a lot of smoke from all the sides. It's not really smoke, but you know what I mean, the gas which could be, of course, bad for the lungs. Of course, it could be bad for the lungs, you know, since it is, you ingest it, you inhale it. So this corner, you're getting attacked from all sides, eh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get whiff of it, you know. You get whiff. So here it is, a little garden. This is what I wanted to see, actually. This is such a beautiful garden. See, look at that. Just these red ones are so nice, and how they're done from one layer until the other, and there you kind of have a little bit of crustiness. So thank you. I really love this garden here. It's really nice. Gotta love this. I gotta love it. I mean, I love it. You don't have to. It's not an obligation pertaining to the individual sovereign citizen individual who might not love it a one bit. But I say it myself, I just love it. And oh, there's even a little bit of white flowers there. See, with the beautiful yellows. But nonetheless, and good job. I gotta say, good job. So now we're gonna go. We can go a little bit on that zigzag more, I guess, into the sun. What we're gonna try to do is try to reach the other bridge on the other side, with the moon there on the other side, to reach the bridge, because we were gonna go by the side of the river, but I changed my mind, and you see you got 1, 2, 3, 4 little pumpkins there. And of course, having changed my minds on that situational aspect is something what we have now, of course, to be, and that is just something what we have, of course, categorically to be in the domain now. That is something which we have, of course, to be adjacent. So you gotta drive prudently there. Gotta drive prudently and safely, you know. I'm sorry, I prefer my driving here, but I don't mind. Cars, a Cadillac 63 would be something that I would love to have, but now people are stressed. Eh? Many people are stressed, not just me. My stress is due to the financials, economic only, and I'm joyous actually now because I got donated, as you see in part 1, somebody donated some, of course, of that. Some, of course, donated a little bit of something there, and just something which is gonna improve my food security, you know, and that's something which I have, of course, to be, you know, something which we got, of course, that is something which I gotta be proponent about, and of course, those dynamics are that my individual sovereign citizenship now, what your individual sovereign citizenship now, is of course on the side of being that I have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations in parallel to all others citizens who are the majority of neurotypicals, with which we have to build bridges. Oh, I gotta go check those flowers, definitely. We have to build bridges. Oh yeah, these are just lovely. Look at that. Just so, oh yeah, dude, that's really beautiful. Just the vividness of them, and they go all the way to the other side. Turn your heads left or right, safely left or right, because sometimes they can enter by either or side. And see, we got some voting going on, and on the second, and oh, when you're in the shade, the temperature kind of drops fully a few degrees. I just feel it right away. So of course that feeling of dropping of the temperature is of course something which you feel it when you get the wind, and you get when I turn of course towards that sun, then I get a bit of warm up. But of course now we're gonna continue discussing the characteristics of Asperger's, also known as HFA. And of course, autism, of course, is a form. Asperger's, of course, is a form of that configuration. And of course, that configuration is something which we have now to be. And of course, that is, of course, just the prologue, of course, of all the situation where we have now to be in the situational awareness of these projections, where we got to turn our heads on the left and on the right, left or right. Muito cocapu. So that is was. Was nicht mehr kriegt nicht. Unsere Scheiß nicht. So that is the difference and the distinction of Asperger's or general autism is that is a milder form of autism. So now we're gonna go into the actual discussion of the characteristics for just a bit. I don't want to discuss only autism and Asperger's, but it's important because it is my road, my journey to understanding of myself and being part of this tiny community, which took me years and years and years and years to acknowledge, because for more of course than 5 years, of course, is something than 5 years, which I've been told and semi-officially diagnosed by different citizens and individuals who have had experience, who have had experience with Asperger's and with autism generally, of course. With autism and generally, of course, I've had that experience, so that's just something which we have to acknowledge, because only about 44 months ago I totally accepted it that I have Asperger's and autism, and of course generally my autism, of course the implementation of course of autism is Asperger's is a form considered a milder form of autism, right? They merged in 2013. Before it was known as Asperger's, before 2014 is known as Asperger's. So of course that is just the situation where we have now to be projected in all the generalships where we are to be transducive at this point in time, last day of September 2025. And of course last day of September 2025, that is the end of September. I'm gonna have to pay rent again. But for today my rent's paid. As I live carpe diem it every day, I would live for today and dream, hope for tomorrow. Ever since I died of COVID in February 2020, I was really sick. I thought I was gonna die. I thought it was that's it. It was like death, pestilence, and disease for me, COVID. But of course I survived, and having of course survived COVID is something which of course we gotta get it on that drill together now and cross the street brutally and make sure you turn your heads left and right, because we got responsibilities, duties, and obligations, when we're in the public, which are additional to what we have. What we don't have usually, of course, the same responsibilities, duties, and obligations if I would have stayed home. And I think last time that I crossed here in the back was 8-9 years ago. We need to clean a little bit. We need to get a lot of cleaning here. It's not good for the environment. See, we got a little bit of cleaning here to do. It's not that good for the environment here to do it. And all that cleaning, of course, something which we have, of course. Wow, this is the way we need, of course, the DJ, the Dancing Goddess Army. Of course, the Dancing Goddess Army is something which, of course, we need to implement and create. And that's dangerous for the children there. I'm going to see if there's a garbage. This is dangerous for the children, broken glass like this, because they can put their hands on that. So I'm gonna just do it myself and just throw it, see if I can throw this in the garbage. Even I'm taking a bit of a risk, but nonetheless, just because children can play there, gotta see if I can get a little bit of that somewhere I can put it in. Public garbage, that's what I'm looking for. Maybe I'm gonna have to traverse on the other side. I don't know. See for here? No, I don't see it. I don't see it. Maybe there in the corner, but I guess I'm gonna go put it there. I'm just gonna traverse here safely. I'm gonna go put it there. I'm gonna finish on autism. See, maybe this is why I was saved 11 plus years ago. I always say I died during COVID. It's my 4th rebirth, and of course I always say, because my memory as far as goes before 2014, before 2014, it remains a big mystery, Before 2014, that's a big mystery with us. So since it's a bottle, we're gonna put it in the garbage there, in the trash. Well, we got public trash. I guess we can put it here, The public trash right there. It's a bit dirty, so I can't really recycle it. So I'm just gonna drop it there. Just gonna drop it in the trash there. That's it. In the bag, so it doesn't. We're just gonna make sure that it's closed a bit in the bag so somebody else doesn't get hurt. But there in the street it was dangerous. So now I'm gonna disinfect my hands because I touched that, and gonna take my hand sanitizer and then gonna get all those microbes, germs, bacteria, and get on it. See, just like that. Oh yeah. That disinfectant, that bacteria kills the germs. Gotta rub a little bit. The hand, just one hand, because I touched it with one hand, so just gonna rub a bit. Fingers. I have to get the refill tonight. I must not forget to make a refill because I had to press very hard for it to get something, and it's pushing out less and less and less and less of the juice, so I'm gonna have to make that refill. So now I'm gonna discuss the characteristics, traits. Characteristics, traits of Asperger's vary with intensity and degree from different individuals to different individuals. I myself am an individual, sovereign citizen with Asperger's, but it varies, right? So it can be different variations of intensity, but generally these are certain characteristics. So you might see an Asper like myself, and I've been told for many years again, since about 2016 early, that I have Asperger's and HFA. Well, back then it was Asperger's. I still kind of is the same Asperger's and HFA. So I might inspect, and I do, and my friend has said, you know, you look weird. People are looking at you. What are you doing? For example, inspect an object close in the store, right? In the store. So I would be in the store with different objects, and I do it often. I would inspect it close to the face like this. Very close for like a minute, half. For example, I would notice, as you see here, I would notice that number, 7,315. See? 7,315. And other numbers, and I would be focused basically on certain details, such as that number, 7,318. So that has a significance. It could be a classification. It could be an industry standard. It could be an internal protocol. It could be that is the number 7,335 that was issued of that small tiny disinfectant. That could be it. That was on that one particular assembly line. Look at these. They grew from the concrete, eh? Hello, what? Look. Yeah. Right from the concrete. Isn't that amazing? They're still here. They'll probably be here for a few weeks. But that's pretty amazing, in my opinion, that the flowers grow right from the concrete there on the side of where there's the pollution, you know. And please don't leave trash. We got a lot of work to do. Don't leave garbage here in the flora, like that stuff. That's why we need the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Dance League, to do a lot of arbeit, a lot of work in regards to, of course, the environment, the environmental work, which we need, of course, to do together as individuals. We have to do it, right? And as part of the collective, we have to do it, because, of course, myself, I'm an individual, so I can only do XYZ myself. That's why we need to get the DGA, Dancing Goddess Army. As you know, dancing is my favorite sport, so that is something which has to be removed here. Oh yeah, we got, see how much work we got with the DGA. We could have been and just gathered all this. Getting break my heart now. Look at that. So we got to clean, and see the flowers still grow there. Look at those flowers still grow on the side, and still are there the flowers on that side of the growth, you know. Quite amazing if you think about it, and amazing on that. I'm a bit upset now, but I guess I have hope that we are going to finance the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army, and we're gonna dance, and we're gonna go cleaning the cities, rivers, valleys, mountains, and rivers of the North American Collective. And I kind of find this very beautiful. Some red, some of those trucks. Oof, I got a whiff of something, but now we're gonna cross the street here. Left, right. Left, right. Gotta turn your heads left and right, you know. Cross the street poorly, and whew, I got a whiff of something in my nose. I think it was from that truck. Whatever it was that it was carrying. It was semi-chemical, semi-mixed something. Not that bad, but still enough to my nostrils to react. Slight reaction, not hardcore reaction, but a slight reaction in a more unpleasant way. Not enough for me to sneeze, although I kind of feel like sneezing, but it's kind of not coming out. So Asperger's, we have certain weird, odd characteristics and traits. I don't even use the word symptoms. Because symptoms is for an illness, for a malady, for a disease. I use characteristics because that's fundamentally what they are, right? They're characteristics. They are characteristics. They're traits, characteristics, which really can seem odd, weird, bizarre, awkward, but they're not evil, negative, bad, or malicious, right? Not evil, bad, or malicious. Gonna give them a call, send an email today for some work, but maybe they're hiring here, maybe. On call part-time. I gotta pay my phone, I guess. Hey, I gotta get down to paying that phone bill. I'm gonna be a bit late on it, but that's just the problem that I'm facing now is financial, really, in nature. You know, so besides the financial problems, I don't have any other problems. And yeah, I get moody sometimes, but I'm no longer depressed. And about 44 months ago, I've accepted my Asperger's, autism, and it's just managing those characteristics, such as, of course, personal space. We tend to breach personal space also. It's something because our brains is different, right? So we don't process the same social information. What comes easy to you, you know, the unwritten social rules, when to speak, when not to speak, of course, other rules, such as, of course, the social distancing when speaking with somebody, you know, the 4 yards for us is 4 inches. So yeah, my friend always told me, hey, you're too close to people, you'll get, you know, even to her, even. Then I got to thank her for 2 books on autism for Gifted, and 1 book specifically on Asperger's, which was loaned because it was a library loan 4 times. And in that book, I learned my own differences and divergence and how I have certain vulnerabilities because of this Asperger's, which I do not fully process certain information the same, and the way we interact and we speak and we communicate can be, of course, more dangerous for us, more prone to danger for us, more prone to danger vis-a-vis us, how we are. So that proneness to a certain degree of danger is this involvement of this degree of danger, which of course is and has to do with these social norms, characteristics, and us not processing information, social information especially, the same, that leaves us vulnerable. So in a way, that book helped me for my own protection. And for Aspies, you know what I'm talking about, sometimes the abuse, the harm, the not knowing the gossip world and the gossiping and all that becomes difficult for us, and we can be ourselves, Aspies, like myself. Sometimes we're straightforward and direct. That's why from now on it's friends with benefits only, don't waste my time, or pledge your allegiance, legions, you know. Pledge your allegiance, legions, don't waste my time, and I won't waste yours. And you know, that's just the manner, of course, in which we proceed to live and to concord, of course, all our life abilities. Hey, smiley, smiley, smiley. Life abilities and life forces, and of course our characteristics, which have to be managed and reconciled. Reconciliation is this truth and reconciliation, and we have to build bridges, small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, or extra large. Oh wow, so much dearth. Hey, we really have a lot of work to do, brothers and sisters, for for our North American collective, of course, for our North American collective, rejuvenation of our North American collective, the Imperial Republic's wellness, natural reconciliation of nature and civilization. And civilization is a privilege. And of course, see just this bridge here. It was built, of course, decades and decades and decades ago. Decades and decades and decades ago. And it doesn't seem too safe nowadays, to be honest. Every time I pass by here, I have certain concerns that it's just gonna give up and just fracture, collapse, you know. But still, civilization being that it is a privilege, sometimes, that was my thesis back in 2023, the things we take for granted sometimes, the water, the sanitation, all the aqueducts, all the bridges, even this pedestrian street by which I'm marching now, doing this march workout meditative about geopolitics and sports and fitness, and of course 24/7 geopolitics and a little bit of economics, finance with that, because I know a little bit, not too much, but I know I have predicted what's happening now. We're going to get into that. I'm just going to finalize on Asperger's. That I have to work on these characteristics and be mindful that you, the majority, 99% of the population, which are neurotypicals, we might have misunderstandings, and that's basically what we have to work on, so that there's no misunderstandings, and we clarify whether we can work together or not work together, or where we can do business or not do business. And of course, gotta salute the workers, the truckers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, firefighters. LOV to the firefighters, train conductors, and those daycare workers changing diapers. I think about during COVID, I applied for a job here, but did a follow-up, and I think they weren't hiring then. Maybe I should do a little bit of a follow-up. And this smell here kind of smells funky a bit, but to me it's not that unpleasant. Not that unpleasant. It gets a little bit worse though. So now it feels a bit more unpleasant, but not unbearably so. Industry of Montreal here. We got some industry, we got some workers, and you know, civilization was built with brains and muscle. Brains and muscle, and got a lot of standards. And civilization is a privilege, to have my backpack with those red gloves. Challenging Donald Trump. I'm challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018, and I got that backpack full, I got that backpack full. I got donated a cantaloupe. Got a cantaloupe, got of course some salad, got of course some romaine lettuce, and got a little bit of that XYZ with it, and got of course all the fabrications, which I got those radishes. So of course those radishes is of course something which we have of course to do and to eat and to enjoy and to maybe meditate where they're from, because I'm not sure. Potentially they're Canadian, potentially they're Quebec, because we grow a lot of food here in Quebec, We do grow a lot of fruits and vegetables. We grow a lot of them. Des fruits. In French it's des fruits. Fruits and fruits. They're kind of similar. We write them the same way. We just mispronounce them differently, of course. So the fact that we mispronounce them differently is, of course, the categorization, of course, of that mispronunciation in certain levels where we have now to be prudent, of course, where we got the reconciliation of Aspies and neurotypicals with which we have to build bridges, such as that bridge, small bridges, medium-sized bridges, big bridges, or extra large bridges. So those bridges have to be built, and it's of course a reciprocal affair. It's part from my side or the Aspie side, of which we constitute less than 1%, even if only half, of course, are. Only, of course, if half are diagnosed officially. I'm part of the semi-officially diagnosed, but you know, I have it. I've been actually discussing with somebody who works in Asperger's, and of course he told me that you know, that's because we're a private clinic, it's gonna be costly. And I said, oh, I thought it was offering some sort of But it ends up that I'm not gonna be able to do but much. I don't need much support though. I just need more understanding and support with my work. The dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership. I wonder if somebody's gonna vote. I wonder how many are going to vote for this specific theme. So you have Project Montreal there, and this one is of course La Salle. So you have different ones, but see, it's rare that I see 4 people, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the same post. You see there the moon getting fuller. So I have to check what are they proposing. Of course, Montreal, now we're having the strike, so I'm gonna finalize on autism, Asperger's, what it is and what it's not, and what are those characteristics with which we got to build bridges, such as that bridge being crossed now. And of course we got to get, of course, to build bridges, of course, to the condom with certain conditions, of course, of mutual respect, a mutual understanding, and working together as individual sovereign citizens, us neurodivergents and you neurotypicals. Of course, neurotypicals, you constitute the 99% of the population. We constitute, of course, 0.88% of the population, about less than 1%. So we have to build, of course, the bridges by building those bridges, and those bridges have to be built, of course, in the communication, at the communication level. Of course, there's difference and this distinction. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm in the middle best because I'm getting a whiff of gas. That's why I step back. Some cars, and all these cars are now eating money. We're gonna get back into that. Because now my brain, of course, as I'm discussing, and Asperger's and autism in the background, think of it just like hardware and software. My brain, of course, also calculates the consumption of the gas potentially, that I know, of course, mathematics, and Aspies usually we're above average in mathematics. Above average. Mathematical language, intelligence level, but the problem is, yes, in mathematics and intelligence, but I'm not going to use the word disability, because yes, okay, we are less able in the social aspect and social communications, and we have 4 main problems, Aspies, which I'm now going to address and then finalize and go into mathematics and finance a bit. So the 4 main problems of Aspies are the lack of friends. We make friends, but keeping them, if they're neurotypicals, it can be difficult because we can be intense, super concentrated, super focused, super dedicated with those special interests, which sometimes we just discuss and we have no idea that the person is not interested in those topics or subjects, right? So we might converse and discuss and not know that that person is not interested, right? A lack of employment, but not that we lack or that we don't get. We do get employment, but we have trouble keeping employment long term. So maintaining long-term employment is a difficulty, right? Maintaining long-term employment is a difficulty, you know. And for Aspies, the unemployment rate stands at 80%. That's 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. Imagine 4 out of 5 Aspies are unemployed. So of course 4 out of 5 Aspies being that they're unemployed, of course it is, of course, the appellate information what we have now to be, of course, decisive about the future actions which we have to discuss with potential work partners and business partners and other partners and work partners and employers, that this Aspiness is not bad, evil, or negative, but because we have to, of course, build, of course, those strategies for building the bridges, right? And it can be a mutually beneficial relations. Sometimes we just got to be told more directly, because we can be direct, we can be straightforward ourselves. So the fact that we can be direct or straightforward ourselves can, of course, lead to certain beneficent mutual understanding and construction of mutually beneficial relations. And of course those mutually beneficial relations are, of course, of the domain, of course, where we are understood and where this difference is not necessarily seen in a negative light anymore, but it is seen as something which has its benefits as well. That's why the book Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, I strongly recommend. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a book which I strongly recommend. So Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a book which I strongly recommend to all. to read, not just neurotypicals, a new correction, neurodivergence, but also neurotypicals if you want to learn more about it, but specifically Aspies, because it's made for Aspies. So Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a book which I've opened, of course, my own awareness of my vulnerabilities, and to work to be able to be better at building those bridges. So it was loaned 4 times, and I gotta give a shout out to my friend for loaning it. So now those are the problems we have. Lack of friends, unemployment can be difficult. The lack of course, employment is very problematic. High depression and suicidal rates. I was depressed and suicidal from about summer 2014 till about summer 2017, summer 2017. So for about 3 years, but my memory is blacked out, before. I have trouble remembering my life prior to January, February 2014. January, February 2014, there's a difficulty in remembering my life, just personal memories. But that's a long time ago. That's more than 11 years and 7 months. 11 years and 7 months. That's a long time. 11 years and 7 months, That's a long time. A long time, right? February 2014, January 2014. Today we're ending. That's more than 11 years and a half, ago. And the other problem is, of course, the suicidal rates and the dropout rates from high school, 7 times higher. As unemployment is 11 times higher. Employment is 11 times higher. So that's a problem. That's a problem. Big problem. 11 times. For one neurotypical who's unemployed, there's 11 aspects. 80%, 4 out of 5. It's really, and I had many jobs. It's just keeping the jobs long term, which can be problematic. Maintaining long-term employment can be problematic. So the maintenance, of course, of long-term employment can be, of course, problematic, of course, in the situational aspects where it is understood fully. Of course, where we have, of course, to build, of course, the characteristics where we are now in the propositions, of course, where we are on the domain, of course, of the interpersonal relations which we have to build between ourselves as Aspies and you neurotypicals or autistics generally. So now, to add, the important part is that no, not all Aspies are good at computers, Yes, the truth is that statistical population-wise, in the statistics, there is a higher disproportionate percentage, since we constitute less than 1% of the population, and you neurotypicals the 99%, and in our Aspie population is about 20% or so, right? Which is 1 out of 5, which are good at computers, but it's not all, right? It's not all, but it's a higher percentage, because from among the neurotypical population is between 1% and 4%, different areas, if it's California or other more different states and different regions in Canada. It's regional as well, but generally it's about 11 times higher. But my special interest is, of course, geopolitics, and that's what I know most, and that's what I'm going to discuss now, geopolitics. And of course, being an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, thinker, philosopher, and strategist, I develop strategies for the North American Collectif. That's what fundamentally, paradoxically, I'm good at. Parallel to rock and roll and sports and fitness, not necessarily the vocal, that my voice is divine for everybody to get orgasmic pleasures out of it, but necessarily, of course, for the lyrics, the rhythm, the lyrics, and the creation of the content of the words. That's what I'm good at, that type of rock and roll. Not necessarily that my voice is rock star like, but rock stars and rock and roll. I can write songs on the daily, French and English. I write rock and roll songs on the daily, French and English. So that's where we position ourselves with that, and that's where we keep our strengths and continue with our journey. Because I've been told for many years, but only about a few years ago, 3.5 years ago, 44 months ago, because for 9 years, more than 9 years, by several individuals, I've been semi-officially diagnosed, It's clear that I have Asperger's, and I have encountered all the struggles which Aspies encounter even now. I had many jobs. I just lost my jobs after 4 months, 3 weeks, 4 days, 4 months, few weeks. You know, so that has been a problem. Maintaining long-term employment has been very problematic for aspects, and of course also I'm not going to discuss masking, and as far as my memory goes, sometimes it comes back, but I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014 winter, January, February 2014, which is February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. That's 11 years and 7 months ago. Maybe I was a junkie, you know. Sometimes maybe I say, maybe I did lots of drugs. Maybe I was doing booze, alcoholic. Maybe I was an alcoholic and a junkie. And maybe that trauma, because I got to retrieve those archives from the Jewish General Hospital. Maybe I'm going to go tomorrow, maybe. So hopefully by October 31st, I need to retrieve my archives from the Jewish General Hospital, from the Jewish General Hospital, from the Jewish General Hospital. Maybe I'm gonna retrieve. I hope I get to retrieve, because I want to know what year was that, because I remember because I was an N.A.C.W.P, because a lot of N.A.C.W.P suffered that abuse, you know. So I don't like violence. I don't like violence, but I am hypervigilant. So I was attacked, hit in the head a few times, and hit my head on the concrete. I don't know if it was with an object or just fist. I was banged up, bloodied up, and had a dislocated right shoulder, right arm. Went to the Jewish General Hospital here in Montreal, because I lived in a very moldy place. I didn't even have a bathtub, and even the kitchen was in my room. It was a small, kind of like a prison cell. I always say I was saved, maybe to save, just like I picked up that pointy to save a child's hand from going into it, or, you know, falling into it. So that's it for Asperger's. I'm just gonna go a little bit to see what this says. This is on strike. They're on strike, en grève. And see, these are made in Montreal, Quebec. See, en grève, this is the translation. They're on strike. See, 100% made in Quebec. That means made in Quebec, made in Quebec, made in Quebec. That's the translation, and they're all made in Quebec. And now we're going to discuss a little bit of economics and finance, because I guess here they were protesting and having a little bit of that grève here. That should have been recycled though. I'm not going to use my hands because I'm running out of disinfectant. If I would have had more today, I would have had, but those have to be recycled, the cans. Come on, workers. If there were, benefit of the doubt that they were just somebody else who were not part of the strike though. Hey? But en grève, the strike. So that's en grève, it's French for strike. So I'm going to discuss a little bit of strike. So yes, that's my stress now is financial, and I never had a union to represent me because I had many different jobs, but I guess we're gonna get that N.A.C.W.P, the North American Collective Workers Party, because generally I'm pro-labor and love and union, and of course I represent, of course, the love and the union there, and of course that, of course, representation of the love and the union, that is of course something which I have to be doing now, and of course that union is of course something which I am pro-labor and love revolutionary centrist, and of course I am that pro-labor and love revolutionary centrist. But of course all that situational aspects where we have now to be integrated, of course, in all the domains where we are now, to be aware that the cost of living has went up, of course, in so many different areas of our complexities, of course, of this position where we are now, the majority of the population, of course, that is all the domains where we have now to be conclusive, where we are the domains of the expenditure of the financial aspects, and that, of course, financial aspects where we, of course, conclude ourselves to be. It is of course something where we propose, of course, to be now in the situational aspects where we are in difficulty, and of course all the difficulties where we are now are the relationships with each other, that they're part of the labor relations, which of course are manifesting in a crisis mode, and of course that crisis mode is of course always related to this cost of living crisis, which myself and most are suffering about. So I'm not gonna rush here. But of course I'm just gonna take a few steps and look a little bit of that, gazing a little bit of that beautiful sunset. And of course, beautiful sunset there is something which of course we have to preposition ourselves to be now. And just I moved a little bit because there's gas comes right directly, right? the gas some exhaust. So now I'm going to discuss just the strike. So yes, generally I'm of course supporting the strike because they're asking of course for 25%, and of course due to the fact that they're asking for 25% is of course confluently to the manifestation of our prices, which have been increasing, and of course they're not asking for so much that is not feasible. So the feasibility of course is feasible, and of course the relationship thereof is that this feasibility of giving 25% over 5 years means that it's 5 divided by 5. That means 5% annually, of course, which is fair, I think, because the prices of the tickets have been increased, and thus the added profit has been added. So of course the profit has been added, and of course the profit has been added thereof, and that's why we can give 25% over 5 years, you know. So because we can give 25% over 5 years, 25% over 5 years, that is of course something where myself, I have of course to state that it is feasible from my calculations, mathematical calculations. I believe it to be feasible. I believe it to be feasible. Right? Because it's 25% divided by 5, that would be 5% annual increase. And of course, now just if you calculate in the past 5 years how much the average prices of gas has gone up, it's about 75%. It's about 75%. That is, of course, the price of gas, which has increased from 93 cents average till about 159 today. 2 weeks ago, it was 166 at one point. So it's up and down, but it's never passed. I never saw it below 154 this year. I never seen it below like 154 this year. So that's eating. Even now, all the cars that you see in the video, and all the cars in Montreal, and all the, I guess, North American Collectif supposed to say that it is about parallel increase, generally, of course, increase in the price of gas. But in Montreal, the average price of gas for February 2023 was 93 cents. So considering that it was 93 cents, that is of course the stipulation of these 93 cents where they are eating from the money now. So now they're eating from the money. That car, and that car, all these 4 cars which have passed me, and all the cars that are now here, they are paying 75% more, around about 75% more on gas, because that's a variable. The price of gas varies. That means changes. It's a mathematical financial variable. What is a constant is how much the cars consume gas per 100 kilometers. So that is of course the constant. So that is the constant, how much they eat. All these 4 cars that pass, 1, 2, 3, 4, they all have the X, which can represent potentially on an axis of financial calculations, their consumption is always, let's say, 11 liters per 100 kilometers. So that means that or 10, let's make it easy, 10 in 2020, February, it was $9.30, because 93 cents times 10 is $9.30 for 100 kilometers. That was the cost for their distance of 100 kilometers. That's what costed that car. It varies, it can increase or decrease depending on the car. Specific cars, different cars have different consumption per 100 kilometers. You can relate it to miles, if you will, and convert it easily into miles, or gallons. Gallon is 4 liters, right? And miles is a bit more than a kilometer, about 1.30, 1.44, about, more or less. So that means that all cars are spending, or citizen drivers, consumers have less purchasing power. If I'm to putting into words what has been happening financially, is citizens have less purchasing power to buy other goods, eggs, butter, bread, cheese, whatever, etc., even for the rent, because rent has been gone up and prices have increasing. So of course that is the reality of all the cars now. There, unless of course exceptions, financial mathematical exceptions would be the hybrids, right? Well, hybrid, they have to consume some gas, or electric. If they're electric, it doesn't apply. And here in Quebec, we have electricity that is zero pollution. It does not pollute, right? It does not pollute. What? Yes, see? Okay, no problem. Just watch. She doesn't look at the other side. That's why I had my eyes, you know. That's why I had my eyes. That's why I had my eyes. That's why I say, you know, that's why I stopped, I paused. I had my eyes, she looked on the other side. I counted and I calculated. So in my mind, in mathematics, I calculated my steps, her range of the curb. That's why I stopped about a few yards and I calculated the range of the curb and I stopped for her to see me. But she turned, she was about to turn, that's why she pressed the brake. And then she said, you can go. You go ahead, priority, because you're supposed to look both ways. Citizen driver, hey, both ways. Because it's the pedestrian there to cross. So that's why I always say, see in my videos, turn your heads left and right. I know you're stressed. I know people are stressed driving. That's why I always say, hey, left and right, left and right, left and right. That's why I stopped, and in my mind, mathematics popped up. I said, that car has a potential for speed because the car stopped. She was looking, they, whatever the case, citizen driver was looking only that east, because I'm coming from the west. She was turning towards the west, so I was going that direction, and I calculated the range of this semi, like an ellipse, right? An ellipse. Her was doing an ellipse, mathematical, so kind of on a Cartesian plane, you know, like it was gonna do a kind of a semicircle, like a curve, right? So it's gonna turn in an ellipse. So that ellipse and her calculation, that's why my calculations for her potential speed, that's why I stopped, and because I know there was an added risk for me, because I have to look on the right side. So here is the eco center. So the eco center is where those things which we saw earlier there, where you sprayed there, and you did some good work. That cat I really love. Four color cat, black, white and gray and yellow eyes, you know. But after you spray and you do that, bring the spray here at the eco center. They properly know how to recycle that and how to make it sure that it doesn't pollute. And you have the hours they're gonna change in October, but generally that's French. They're still open from, of course, every day from 8 in the morning till 6. 8 in the morning till 6 every day until the 14th of October, and then they're closing from the 15th of October till the 14th of April. They're closed from Sunday to Monday, but they're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? Saturday. So they're open 5 days, and those 5 days from 10 to 6. So bring whatever you need to bring here, the eco center, if you have batteries or other chemicals and those sprays, you know, if you do that graffiti. Don't scribble. Like, if you can do talented stuff, talented art, graffiti art, real graffiti art, then we can make a compromise, you know, to embellish. But if you're just gonna scribble like, you know, do dragons, do workers, do farmers, do butchers, do truckers, do bakers, do workers, you know, work prone, worker graffiti art, you know what I'm saying? Worker graffiti art. Then I guess I would, you know, police, as we're gonna get that Imperial police infuse the RCMP and the FBI. We're gonna get the new 911 public-private partnership centrist protocols, universal revolutionary centric protocols, and that's what we're gonna get. And that is, of course, something which we're gonna get, of course, in the domain and in the name, of course, where we have, of course, now the characteristics of the circumposition of where we are now, to continue discussing the strike. So I support that strike, because I think that 25% over 5 years, 5% I calculated, because the prices for the STM have increased every year in the past years. So I calculate that just by those prices that have increased, they should be able to be afforded that increase over 5 years, which is not that much, 25% over 5 years, it's a quarter, and it's barely addressing the cost of living, because some prices and rents have gone up so much in the past 4 years. They just exploded, to be honest. They just think about that as an explosion. Inflation is now possibly stagflation now, and of course that's a problem. So let's get the North American Collective Workers Party, Global Dragon Union. Let's get the North American Collective Workers Party, the Global Dragon Union. Let's get the North American Collective Workers' Party, the Global Dragon Union. Let's get the North American Collective Workers' Party, that Global Dragon Union, and pledge your allegiance. Legions are friends with benefits only. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. And now leave the baggage at the door. We enter, strike aside, and calculations of the financial cost aside, because yes, indeed, they have been increasing disproportionately. There's a big disproportionate increase in the cost of living and wages, Wages, generally there's a massive stagnation of the wages. Which is a big problem. So now we're going to enter my domain, my realm, which I mostly know. But when you study geopolitics, as I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, philosopher, and thinker and strategist, you have to know a little bit about finance, economics, all these things of civilization. It encompasses the study of geopolitics. But of course, geopolitics is mainly the political relation between nation states, geographical positions, geographical areas, organizations of a social political nature, diplomacy, war, conflict, economics is included, and finance and trade wars and trade deals, and the things, of course, of civilization, which encompasses, look at that moon, getting a bit on the full side. So, of course, now we're going to discuss geopolitics, of course, from the strategic point of view, and the philosophical point of view, and the scholarly point of view, and the academic point of view, as I try to cross the street there safely, as I call for all to support the building of bridges, which we gotta build together, such as that bridge, which we're gonna attempt to cross now together on the other side, because I want to check the sunset. So we gotta build bridges. Now I'm gonna turn my heads left and right. There's a stop sign there, but you never know. Hey, the citizen brakes malfunction. What if it presses the accelerator instead of the brake? And all these what ifs are a confluence which can lead us to potential danger, right? Potential. Vous aimez les Patriots?
Comment?
Oui. Les Patriots, ok.
Une bonne équipe, non?
Mais je sais pas à cette heure, là. Je sais pas à cette heure, là.
Non plus, mais...
Moi, je tiens les 49ers à ce moment.
Oui, les 49ers.
Ouais, we lost last Sunday.
Right.
We lost, but we're 3-1. We're 3-1.
It's not bad, it's good.
Not bad. Purdy's back. I'm glad Purdy's back.
Yeah.
Mr. Irrelevant, he got drafted last 242nd.
Yeah, that's way back there.
Yeah. Anyways, you go ahead.
Yeah, thanks.
You go ahead.
Have a good day.
Likewise, you as well. So, of course, that is the proposition where we got now, of course, to be. And, of course, being that I love gridiron, and my uncle there smiled a little bit on that. And that is, of course, something which we got to be. Loving that gridiron, although, of course, football is my second favorite sport. My gridiron, of course, it is. Of course, that gridiron where we have, of course, now to be interjected, where we got now to be now loving. And, of course, to cross this street prudently as we have now, the domains. And we got, of course, to be civilizationally prudent on that LOVE, and that's why I gave him a little bit of that passing by to pass at a pass and then interject, and of course do all the things which we have to do together now, cross the street safely, and look at that beauty. So we got to build bridges, myself and you, small, medium, large, extra large, between ourselves and you as neurodivergence, it's neurodivergence, and that's what we gotta do. So now we're gonna enter geopolitics. So geopolitics is, of course, the study, the analysis of the geopolitical world. So the geopolitical world is a formulation, of course, of the studies thereof, where we confluently, of course, and concomitantly align ourselves in the world geopolitically, or the geopolitical strategies which can be implemented, which I have, but mostly I don't discuss them fully because they have binational, national, NATO security matters, such as the total mobile defense theory, and of course the total mobile defense theory, which when we apply it or implement my total mobile defense theory, it becomes a system, right? It becomes a working system, which of course I have been advocating to do. first to implement, and I have developed it in past 2017 when I crossed Canada coast to coast. Before that, I was depressed, I was suicidal. Crossing Canada in 2017 and made me change my whole mind. I had a revelation. I saw so many things to see, to do across this through North Strong and Free. And of course, that's when I started my fitness journey when I came back and lost between 80 and 93 pounds. That's why I always advocate citizens to work out, to train, to exercise. And working out, training, exercising has been, is, and will be my medicine and therapy of choice. And of course, that is the ability, of course, for us to do now, and to see, of course, where we get the relations, of course, of the fitness vis-a-vis mental health. And of course, that fitness and mental health is also part of being grateful. Gratitude, you know, because life is short. I had COVID, I survived COVID. Ever since I had COVID, and it was like death, pestilence, and disease. And of course, I survived COVID, and ever since then, I live like it was my last day, live for today, but I dream and have great hopes for tomorrow, especially vis-a-vis the Imperial Republic of the 63, because this Quebecer Canadian was an N.A.C.W.P artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical artist, and of course thinker. It, of course, something which we have now in the implementation, of course, of the domains, that it is something which I have to propose to be. And of course, that I am a mystic. And I was born in the United States 3 times, post 76, once as a woman, twice as a man, served in the same United States Armed Forces, 2 different times in the same U.S. Armed Forces, 2 different wars, 156 years apart. And of course, 156 years apart when I served in the United States Armed Forces. That is, of course, the service that I served in 2 different wars in the same United States Armed Forces. And you got to read George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly. George Patton's Through a Glass Darkly, Via a Glass Darkly. George Patton wrote a poem which I love, one of my favorites, Through a Glass Darkly. But George Patton only discusses, because he believed firmly in reincarnations, he only discussed his male, masculine reincarnations. And he didn't mention that he was my wife once, as I was his wife. So we were both, I was his husband and wife, and he was my husband and wife. So we were both married. Once I was his husband and he was my wife, and once I was his wife and he was my husband. Different, more than 2,600 years ago. Past lives, previous incarnation. But he doesn't mention his women, feminine reincarnations. As you know, I was born a man, a woman, a woman, man, man, a woman, man, man, a woman, woman, a man, man, a woman, woman, man, man, a woman, woman, a man, woman, man, woman, a man. And now 2025, you get that 50-50 as in a parallel life. It is the year of darkness, November 29th, 2029. It is the year of darkness, 2029, where I also have Asperger's in that parallel timeline life, parallel universe. And there I build, design supercomputers, satellites, microchips, and ICBM rockets, and all things to do with science, telecommunications, and security service in terms of the scientific aspect of building supercomputer networks and connected with satellites and across the North American Collective and NATO in that parallel timeline. Israel and Mexico are part of NATO. As you know, before October 7, 2023, when I guess as they call Israel's 9/11 occurred, tragedy of October 7th, surprise attack, that I was advocating actually for both Israel and Mexico to join. Look at these. 1, 2, 3, and 4 right here from the close to the concrete. 4 flowers. I think there's a small 5th one. There's big 4 flowers there. So before October 7th, and with a little tiny one, so I guess close to 5, 4 and 4 and 4 and 4 and 1/12, 4 and 1/11, 4 and 1/12, a little bit more than 4, I guess. And before October 7th, I was advocating for Israel and Mexico to join. This was my geopolitical theory and protocol and strategy for Israel and Mexico to join respectively as the 32nd and 33rd member of NATO. I discussed it, I have the videos, but that was before October 7th, because of course, technically, when a country is in a state of war, since NATO is a military alliance, a country cannot necessarily join, right? according to the constitution of NATO, right? Article 4, Article 5, it's a collective defensive alliance. So if countries are at war, for example, Ukraine technically cannot really join NATO now, right? I guess there's some technicality, some legal framework, because it's an organization which dates from 1949, right? It's a defensive collective security alliance, right? A military, a great geopolitical alliance in many ways. It of course has to do with geopolitics, and it is a geopolitical reality, right? NATO, it's the biggest, although now there seems to be some challenges with the BRICS and the SCO, right? The Shanghai Cooperation Organization. There seems to be an equal parallel military alliance arising in Asia, and even incorporating countries from Latin America, paradoxically. But before October 7th, I was advocating for Israel and Mexico to join simultaneously as the 32nd and 33rd member of NATO, because now Sweden has become the 32nd official member of NATO since, of course, that time, of course, has become the 32nd, of course, member of NATO. So, of course, that complementarity where we are now is, of course, to officiate in the position, and, of course, to be here mindful. And now I'm going to say, I have proof for what I'm going to say next, that I actually predicted what's happening now back in 2019. So you need to leave the baggage at the door, and then we're focusing on geopolitics. If you're not interested, we have already entered the geopolitical conversation as I march now towards the beautiful sunset. So back in 2019, I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration. I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration back in 2019. October 17th, to be specific and exact, I had posted the first video in regards to the workout, which I also created to go hand in hand with such a scenario, such as a World War III scenario, which it seems that we are ourselves, all of us, headed towards this reality. If not, some even say it is World War III has actually commenced, has actually started, and is actually ongoing now, or it's the preparations thereof for World War III. So some say yes, some say no, some say it is beginning, but it hasn't officially started. Now, whether X, Y, Z, officially, not officially, semi-officially, semi-not officially, what I know 100% is that before I had COVID, I had actually predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration on the horizon in the coming XYZ years. I had, of course, predicted that a World War III, an international conflagration, will occur. I had based it on several levels of analysis, several levels of intellectual academic analysis, but what is to be of importance in this conversation of my prediction, of the general prediction which is unfolding and has been unfolding at least since Russia invaded Ukraine. Again, I'm not with 300 men and women on the ground in Ukraine, in Israel, in Taiwan, to fully assess the geopolitical realities, right, on the ground with more in-depth knowledge, because I am a North American fundamentally. I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, many past lives, many incarnations, and this is my home. I personally do not consider myself a member of a diaspora. My initiatives, protocols, and strategies are for the North American collective. So that is fundamentally what I am. Many past lives, incarnations from ancient Egypt. I was the priestess Pythia who orated the great Virthria to Lycurgus. I was the great priestess Pythia who orated the great Virthria to Lycurgus, but that is in a past life when I was that priestess Pythia who orated the great Virthria to Lycurgus. Don't ask for just some recitations, because there's going to be a lot of ancient Greco-Spartan Greco. So now, today in 2025, third last day of September, it is to say, of course, that my prediction is unfolding in a general manner to what I had predicted myself back in 2019, October 17 to be specific about it, just to be more specific. That was my prediction back then. So having predicted the international conflagration again in a general manner, I have also made, created, and produced that workout training program system, which was made, designed, and created to go hand in hand with such a scenario. So of course, that is the scenario which I have had myself concluded back in 2019, October 17, just before COVID had commenced. I had concluded mainly because due to unresolved conflicts and tensions. Of course, I concluded that, of course, due to many unresolved conflicts, and of course those conflicts, of course, which were part of the 20th century, especially during the Cold War period, which lasted from about March 1947 till about 1991 December, that those conflicts had not finalized their resolution. They had not concluded peacefully. There was no final resolution to the conflicts, which had dated, of course, from then, from the 20th century, specifically from the Cold War period, which lasted, I say, more than almost 45 years. Some people say 46. I place the Cold War's duration between March 1947 and, of course, the end of December 1991. So for me, it's 44 years and 9 months. Some say 45 years, 45 and a half. Some even say 46. I don't mind. I don't necessarily object. If you want, that's fine. I'm not somebody who argues that the Cold War lasted more than my almost 45 years, that it was actually not almost 45 years, but it was more than 45 years, that it was actually 46 years and plus. Well, I don't mind. Whatever the case may be, it lasted several decades, more than 4 decades, if you will. More than 4.5 decades. Okay, let's make a deal. And the other, of course, preposition is, of course, which we have in the domain, is that if you look at the conflicts of Ukraine and Russia, that they have reignited, because it's a conflict which dates from the Cold War period. A lot of beautiful sunset. I see all these cars that I discussed before. All of them, regardless, they pay about 75% more, which is about 75% more per dollar for the same distance that they paid before February 2020. So post February 2020, March 2020, after beginning of COVID, which I survived. I was really sick. It was like death, pestilence, and disease, and I got triple vaccinated, and I keep the protocols of hygiene to the best of my abilities, which I encourage all to do, because there's microbes, germs, bacteria, and all sorts of diseases out there, and microbes, germs, bacteria. Please disinfect the hands. But all of them are eating money now, and they're eating 75% more money, not gas, because the gas, they still have the same gas consumption as they did before February, March 2020, but the gas costs about 75% more average. So that means that all of them, if they're not electric, they're paying more, 75% more in money, monetary wise, right? So that car, all the cars now, they're paying about 75% more, right? Because the gas consumption is the same. That's the constant, mathematical constant, but the variable is the cost, the price of gas per liter. So thus, unless it's an electric, like this one is Tesla, if they're electric, then it's different. Not excluding those electric cars, but necessarily many are paying more, 75. So that's where they lose a lot of wealth, right? It's been sucked out by the. But of course, here we have the tar sands, but unfortunately, economically, it's not viable to extract fully, and we don't have this environmentally friendly ways to do the tar sands. If you would have, imagine that would make us all North American Collectif, the Empire, really free of importing oil from anywhere in the world. The United States would not import from outside, would all import from us. The USA would import all its oil from the tar sands if we would be able to extract the oil without damaging the environment, as now it has progressed. And of course the cost and the environmental cost and the financial cost, because we don't have made the technical manners to do so. But of course, if it would be, of course, then we would be, of course, be able to do it. But we're not able to do it at the moment. I'm just saying, but more and more are electric now. So that is just something which you, us, we all have in this point in time to realize that that's one of the pressing that sucks out of the wealth for citizen consumers. Their purchasing power of the majority, many citizens, is being hit hard by the growing prices of gas. So back to geopolitics, that I predicted what's happening now. What I did not predict, however, was that there was going to be a deterioration of relations with the United States. So I did not predict that our relations with the United States would deteriorate to this level of deterioration. And of course I get goosebumps whenever I discuss it. You know that since August 1st, Canadians, by the United States Trump administration, this gives me goosebumps, we are designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat for the American people. That's on black and white there, on black and white from the White House, due to the increase of tariffs, justification of increasing tariffs on Canada. And again, I predicted this conflagration of a worldwide World War III, but I did not predict that our relations with the United States would deteriorate in such a manner. Would deteriorate in such a manner, right? And now, because it's alarming and it's serious, Canada, we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the United States. The reasons that are given there are several. One is the fentanyl crossings and from Canada into the United States compared to 2024 has tripled. And that fentanyl could have potentially killed 16 million Americans. So being that we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat due to that motive given there, the other motive is that we lacked coordination. Our law enforcement agencies lacked coordination with the law enforcement agencies of the US. Of course, the RCMP is sort of in a many way parallel to the FBI. Right, to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So due, of course, to that level that it is to the FBI, the relationship thereof, that we must, of course, work to have the best cordial relationship, I'm going to get back into, is, of course, something where we have, of course, to be drilling about. So, of course, to be drilling about that, it is, of course, the other condition that's given there, or the motive, rather, the reason, the motive for us being designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat, this is serious, very serious, is that our lack of coordination. Now, when you coordinate, it implies action, taking joint action, coordination. Thus, you must cooperate. When you cooperate, you can share information, share knowledge, share skills, share stories. That's coordination. Cooperation, Coordination implies action. Cooperation is can be just sharing information, can be just discussing, can be just sharing skills, sharing knowledge, sharing wisdom. But coordination, it implies action, right? Based on cooperation. So when you coordinate, you also cooperate. But when you cooperate, it's not necessarily that you coordinate on joint action. Just to make that distinction, right? The distinction has to be made. Right, so that being stated, also the motive given there is that the growing migrant and fentanyl crossing has increased from 2024. So joint cooperation on border and transnational criminal syndicates and crime. And super labs are mentioned there. Super labs which can produce, I think the number is given weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, 44 and 66 pounds of fentanyl related products. So super labs. And just to make a reference that in last year, the 25th of October, the 25th of October last year is going to be a year in 26 days. You know what happened? The RCMP, our federal police, dismantled in BC, British Columbia, the biggest ever drug super lab in the history of Canada just last year. You follow? And the mention of super labs is mentioned there. And this super lab, which the RCMP, I guess good job as I sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue. I also sing that rock and roll for those brothers and sisters who take their second, third, and fourth chances even and turn your life around and change your life around and help us, because we need you across the Empire of the 63, Canada, United States, for the Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Action, because we need you to build those 44 mass tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war and to rebuild the inner urban cities, aka the ghettos of the North American collective of our empire, which we gotta rebuild, the ghettos of our empire. So that is, of course, what we need to do. But now, of course, fundamentally, in the aspects of the proposition where we are now, to be, of course, of the directive and, of course, of the implementation thereof, that we have the proof there. We have proof. So that proof from the RCMP, although I'm far from being a Trump supporter, I would have voted Biden or Kamala. I'm a Democratic Republican, pro-labor, love universal revolutionary centrist, 50-50. My revolutionary centrism and pro-labor, love universal revolutionary centrism is North America centric, and it is unique for the 63 because we constitute the North American Civilisation collective, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. And of course that distinction makes us, of course, integral to what we're going to become in the future. So of course plenty of that is to come in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. So that, of course, reality is that we have this reality now, of course, that we've been, of course, warned by the RCMP since 2015 about, right? Since 2015 we've been warned. So last year in 25th of October, on the 25th of October, of course, the RCMP dismantled the biggest ever drug super lab in the history of Canada. And you know, there was 95 million doses of potential fentanyl, which could have killed the population of Canada twice over, just that one super lab. More and more I'm thinking, I'm qualifying this fentanyl as a bioweapon rather than a drug. It doesn't make sense, because from the monetary perspective, you would think that the drug lords, drug kingpins, and narco traffickers would want the citizens, consumers of drugs, fentanyl, to keep buying. But if they're dying, if so many of them are dying from fentanyl, just something doesn't add up, you know? I think more and more has been a covert bioweapon from transnational criminal syndicate organized groups, maybe in coordination with potential enemies outside of NATO, because of the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, you know, which you check, and I'm going to discuss it soon. So we've been warned by the RCMP since about 2015. Since about 10 years ago, the RCMP sounded the alarm, just like I sounded the alarm back in starting October 17, 2019, that we're headed towards the World War III. RCMP has warned us. There's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups establishing themselves in Canada. They warned us for years, especially during COVID in 2021, 2022, 2023. They warned us about foreign outside influence and transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. They warned us, they did. It's right there in black and white from the RCMP and all the workers of the police, federal police force. It's there, brothers and sisters. We've been warned. And now, what if this transnational criminal syndicate organized group who ran that super lab, what if there were 5 super labs? The RCMP on the 25th of October 2024, just last year, dismantled one, which could have killed the population of Canada twice over. You realize just that one super lab. What if there were 5? If there were 5, that means that there is 1 down, 4 to go. 4 to go. If there's 4 to go. Thank you, train conductors, LOV. And see now, they're going west. It's a cargo one. This is open for sabotage and espionage. That's why we gotta fuse the RCMP and base, implement my strategies and philosophies, and I gotta know everything that's coming in and going in and out from the ports and the airports 24/7 across the 63. All the goods, all the services, internal, we gotta do the great audit and great census. Great audit and great census together. Great audit and great census together. The great audit and great census. We gotta do the great audit and great census together. So that's what we have to do, the great audit and census. So that, of course, being formulated in the domain, of course, what we have now to be suffused in integrity of our propositions, of course, what we got, that this train is going west and it is potential open for sabotage and espionage, right? That is, of course, the possibility. I don't know exactly what's carrying. Maybe flour, maybe potatoes, maybe rice, maybe canola, maybe wheat, maybe barley, maybe some other grains, sunflower seeds, or corn, etc., 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 etc. But it's vital. Food security is so vital for our civilization and everything. Everybody got to eat, even Wall Street, eh? Even millionaires living in skyscrapers, which I love. Crane operators, crane workers, I love those. So now we're going back to 20 again, with the RCMP warning us since 2015, and now we have this problem. Because what if that transnational criminal syndicate or organized group had 5 super labs coast to coast? Maybe there's one in Quebec now, because there's 4 to go. One in Quebec, remaining one in Ontario, one in Nova Scotia, and one maybe in Alberta, somewhere in Yukon, somewhere across the 10 provinces or 3 territories, right? So if that's the case, and then that is, of course, the proposition, and that's, of course, the formulation of what we got now to do, of course, in the implementation of where we have now to do all the domains, where we got to do the circumstantial position of where we are to do a great census. So now, finalizing on that, we're gonna make a statement which you have all left, right, and center, and my brothers and sisters in the USA also, you have to say yes to. When it comes to foreign affairs, the primary principle, hierarchical principle for both Canadians, as the king is absent, it's time for the republic. We should have been a republic at the end of the turn of the millennium, January 1st, 2000. At the end of 1999, we should have become a republic. It's time for the republic. It's time for the Imperial Democratic Republican of the 63. So now that we are here today, and my dream is a mass public private partnership base fusion thereof for the 63, always for our empire, let it rise and let it be. Love you, train conductors. Thank you for doing this big transportation across the 63. There's others, trains and truckers and butchers and bakers and construction workers. March for them as I march, of course, for truth and reconciliation for my brothers and sisters indigenous today and every day, you know, because they're also my brothers and sisters all come to join us from all other worlds. We're going to move towards the Imperial Republic. So now, of course, the situation is that, and now you have to listen to this. It's not just a proposition, it's actually a reality. So our geopolitical reality for Canada vis-a-vis the United States, and for the United States vis-a-vis Canada, and this you must say yes, 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 yes. You cannot say no, you cannot say maybe. Our main interest when it comes to foreign affairs is to establish, to work to do, to establish, to make, to work to do the most cordial economic, social, financial, democratic relations with each other when it comes to foreign affairs, not speaking about domestic affairs. Now, this is because of our geography, the fact that we have ocean to ocean, coast to coast, that Atlantic and that Pacific. We have the Pacific and we have the Atlantic, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and we have each other here as a new emergent civilizational collective, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. So that is the first interest if we are to establish a hierarchy of interest. So establishing that hierarchy of interest means that we must establish the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations with each other. There's no other way around that. There's no other way around that. Right? There's no other way around that. You must say yes to that. It's non-negotiable. It's just like the pie symbol, not to be confused with an edible pie. The pie symbol represents the relation between the circumference, that is the diameter with a circle, the circumference and the diameter with a circle, right? The circle, the diameter and the circumference with a circle. That is always 3.1415. It continues ad infinitum. So it always does, it's always that number. It's like an N for the letter Normandy, natural, neurodivergent, neurotypical, unnatural. It has that two-headed, two-faced. That's why coming of our Empire the 63 we refuse is going to be two-headed, two-faced. One for benevolence, goodness, and kindness, and one for punishing and justice. So two-headed, two-faced. One looks like a head of a hawk, and the other one kind of like a bird, an eagle, or a hawk. One of the heads of the N, which is the symbol representing the pi number, which is always the constant numerical value, 3.1415, is the relation between the diameter and the circumference of a circle. One looks like a hawk or an eagle or a type of bird. The other one like a dog, a aardvark, a donkey, a hyena, or antelope, something of that sort. So that, you must say yes to that. Now, oh, there's a rabbit flying high. We have rabbits here. So now we're going to go into the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, because that is a consequence which we have to be aware that the DMAA of NATO taking direct military assistance in action has potential consequences, and the consequences can be X, Y, and Z. So now we're going to formulate it. The DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, has nothing to do with providing humanitarian aid. However, because we have such as involved ourselves in conflicts which are non-NATO in nature, Ukraine was not part of NATO, Taiwan either, there's the potential consequences that we created adverse negative effects that these countries, nation states, on the opposite side of which we supported that adjacent adversarial power by providing military assistance. That's why the theory, and it's not just a theory, it's a protocol working reference. It has to be implemented for further deliberation, as the motto of NATO is animus in consuelo liber, a mind unfettered in deliberation. That's the translation of the motto of NATO, animus in consuelo liber, a mind unfettered in deliberation. Such the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, is a work tool, is a protocol to be delivered whether we are going to take action or assistance in the future. Action is direct military action, such as bombardment by planes, boots on the ground, and assistance is such as Canada and other countries supported Ukraine, which is not part of NATO, or Israel, or other countries which are not part of NATO, because Article 5, which is the collective defense agreement, when one NATO member state is being attacked, then of course we have to invoke Article 5 for common defense and taking action and assistance thereof for each other's. 32 member nations are part of NATO now, even some which are part of the Warsaw Pact, and of course this is only once in history has it been invoked. 9/11 was the only time. 9/11 was only once in the 75-year history. NATO was founded in 1949, so only once Article 5 was invoked, September 11. So certain consequences could potentially, or one of it is surely, the establishment of mutual defense military pact, Sino-Russian, between China and Russia, establishing and increasing their military powers because of our assistance, not action, vis-a-vis Ukraine, Taiwan, Ukraine, Taiwan. They solidified their military alliance like never before in the 21st century. And of course, the SCO, the BRICS, expanding, increasing, more military drills together. You see? You follow? So this DMAA, because we have done it, now we're doing it, it has the consequences. And now I'm going to discuss the DRT, debt refusion theory. Is my theory which we have to implement binationally, because we are on the verge of a public collapse because of the 4 fundamental problems which affect both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA. In the majority, we are financially stressed because of growing rents cost. Even my rent went between $6 and $10. I'm not going to say exactly how much, but of course I'm going to say that it is not that big of a problem, that increase for me, monthly increase between 6 and 10, because I find it fair. The growing cost of living, the price of gas, price of bacon, cheese, milk, other goods, of course, has been increasing. The other is, of course, the growing price, of course, of those dynamics, which, of course, have been interpositioned, that, of course, the stagnation of the salaries has been problematic in the past 5 years since the COVID began, and the inflation and the stock market crash and the trade war which has begun. And the other one is, of course, the growing credit card debt. So those 4 problems are pressing. So that's why the DRT has to be implemented. The DRT, the debt refusion theory, contains in it the monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. So we have to implement it simultaneously, Canada, United States. So we're gonna, this is it explained. So keep in mind it contains the monetary financial theory which was implemented in the European Union in the 90s, by which the Europeans, they destroyed their national central banks, they destroyed their old currencies, and they created the ECB, and they created the European Central Bank. Countries such as Germany, Italy, France, and Belgium, and many other countries do not have a national central bank anymore. They have the ECB. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt. We're going to take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, right? All the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All the public and the private debt, we're going to take it all. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, we're going to take all the public private debt, we're going to add it up together, we're going to convert it into the US dollars, and of course we're going to convert it into the US dollars, and of course we're going to add it with the public private debt of the United States and all other money in circulation. We're going to create a new currency and a new central bank together, the Imperial Central Bank. We're going to create the UE, U.Universal. E.exchange U.UE, the UE, the universal exchange, the U.universal, E.exchange U.UE, the UE, U.universal, E.exchange U.UE, the UE, the UE, the UE, U.universal, E.exchange U.UE. The universal exchange is going to have the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar is, of course, going to be now made into the universal exchange unit, or we could call it the imperial dollar. It doesn't matter the name. Fundamentally, money, whether the dollar, the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, the Israeli shekel, the Australian dollar, the yuan, the yen, the euro, are basically fundamentally units of exchange. That's why I say best to call it what it is, fundamentally money, a UE, a universal exchange unit. We could expand it to include other countries thereafter, the NATO complex throughout NATO. We can implement it throughout NATO, but first and foremost, Canada, United States, implementing it, we're going to get rid of the border. We're going to finance mass rehabilitation of the population which needs it. Mass, of course, finance building of social housing and buying housing and buying hotels to rehabilitate the population, make them serve-enabled, but we're going to build, construct 44 mass underground tunnels, of course, in case of a thermonuclear war, and get in the Golden Hog Dome, the Golden Dome, which of course we're going to have to mass rebuild. We're going to rebuild the infrastructure. We're going to build the bridges. We're going to rebuild the bridges, build the infrastructure, rebuild the bridges, rebuild the infrastructure, rebuild the bridges, rebuild the infrastructure, rebuild the bridges, rebuild the infrastructure. And of course we're going to rebuild here, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to do a great census, give some amnesty people who have been living here in Canada or United States for the past 7 years, 9 years, 10 years, 11 years. If you don't have 44 criminal convictions, if you do, then we're going to implement the Imperial Dracula Protocol, Imperial Dracula Protocol, Imperial Dracula Protocol, Imperial Dracula Protocol. If not, going to give some amnesty. Going to see if we can put some work and with the 44 mass tunnels, underground cities, which we need to build in case of a thermonuclear war. And we're going to mass finance fitness, mass finance healthcare, mass finance tourism. We're going to build the Imperial People's Coliseum, where me and Donald Trump are going to inaugurate it and fight in a boxing match on the Canadian-US border, where we're going to, of course, build, the consequential appellation where we're going to build it, of course, on the be 11 times bigger than where the several Super Bowls were fought, played, and battled out. One of my favorites, Super Bowl 47, aka Blackout Ball. aka Blackout Ball was one of my favorite Super Bowls, and that's where it was played and battled out. And of course, that Super Bowl 47, has several nicknames, and we're going to build a Forgotten Goddess Temple, because it's always God bless, Goddess kiss. The coming of our empire, God bless, Goddess kiss. We're going to construct the pyramid, House of the Dragon. Scarlet, crimson, our shades of red, and the fourth one, the Rainbow People's Palace, for my fellow neurodivergent community and fellow LGBTQ community and N.A.C.W.P community, to symbolize the union and get rid of the border, fuse the RCMP and the FBI. We're going to fuse the forces. We're going to create Dragon's Lairs. across the 63 and establish dragons layers, every dragon layer, every dragon's layers. Every dragon gonna have a dragon layer, and every dragon we're gonna have the dragon layer, and coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Dragons there. We're gonna establish, of course, the dragons layer thereof, and that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna, of course, consequently establish, of course, all the dragons layer concomitantly, of course, to do together here in the North American Collective. Is we're gonna also mass finance tourism. Establish the Imperial Tourism Ministry every spring, every equinox solstice, in the spring, in the summer, in the autumn, in the spring, in the summer, and of course not just that, in the summer, in the spring, in the autumn, in the winter, every 4 those seasons, every equinox. Of course, we're gonna credit 4 days every year. 4 times 4, 16. That's 16 total days. 4 times 4, where food, housing, lodging, and transport. Once you pass the second pass, midnight, that's 1 night. It's 4 nights basically for everybody who's 16 and over. Where food, housing, lodging, transport, don't accept caviar and bottles of champagne, but trains and planes across the 63. We're gonna fuse Canada, United States, and gonna mass finance healthcare and mass finance tourism. This will establish a strong esprit de corps between our youth and our elders and everybody who's 16 and over, regardless of how their status. So we're gonna be a quarter these 4 days. It's gonna rejuvenate us. It's gonna mass establish an esprit de corps. See what we're have here, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, because I got out of depression, and when I cross Canada coast to coast, and it's something which is going to help us, propel us into joy, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. You can take the 4 days every season, or accumulate 8 days, take 8 days twice a year, or this will apply to myself as well, 16 days a year. Wait, after you accumulate 44, you use them or lose them, eh? And you're best to use them once you have like 40, 44, you use them, because then they go back to 0, eh? Because 4 times 11, that's why. So basically 11, 4 times 11. So this is gonna be a great initiative. Concordance of the Empire. Pledge your allegiance, legions, friends with benefits only. Support, see the vision. 4 days every 4 years via the DRT, debt refusion tree, which is going to require a mass public-private partnership. My citizen brother Bill Gates and Peter Thiel and all BlackRock and Blackstone are like the RBC private financial institutions. It will require both public and private mass implementation. We're going to do a census, we're going to do an ID, and this could be relegated to double ID across NATO-centric member countries. Yeah, this has been a joy, and now we got to continue with that march and